Good turnout tonight. Lots of kids, lots of keen faces.
Yep. Kids have got some good questions for you, mate. So, and everyone who sent a question in, I'm gonna go to each and every one of you to ask the question of the boys. So be ready. We'll unmute you when the time comes.
Oh, are they all? Yeah, right. Okay, I thought they were all just in awe of Matthew and Brodders. It's been muted.
Bob was a big Richmond fan in the day, very big Richmond fan.
Yeah, big time.
In the good old days when we didn't win that much, Brodders, that back then, did we?
No, a few lean years there.
Lean years, that's right. That's right.
How many kids have you got online here, Has?
Well, we've got about just under 700 in the club, but I'm not sure how many we'll get online tonight. But normally these Zoom meetings have been about trying to play football with all the adults. So this is a good fun one tonight with some kids' faces on, which is great. So it's good to finally have all the kids here. So we'll just give everyone it's 2 minutes past. Matty, how are we going, mate? We've got a few on now.
There's about 35 at the moment. We're recording, so anyone who misses the start, we'll dump that online once we're finished. So we might just get the pleasantries out the way and remind everyone if they're a little bit fresh to Zoom, good to have your microphones on mute unless you're one of our very special guests tonight so we can hear what they're saying. If you would like to ask any questions, if you haven't already sent them through to Ben, just jump in the chat. I'll be acting as a little producer and Ben's a little monkey tonight, making sure he's all happy. So I'll keep tabs of the questions and I'll do a little slide show later on when it's time for that. But otherwise, I'll be quiet and muted and feel free to keep your cameras on. And when we get to the questions, you can jump online and ask those directly. Here we go. We've got someone on screen now.
Back a bit.
So make sure if you can, just please put your microphones on mute because if you start talking and making noise, your head will jump on the screen nice and big in front of everyone. Okay, so let's kick it off. Firstly, thanks everyone for joining us on a Tuesday night. Much appreciated for Ben for organising this tonight with a couple of good mates, Bob and Richo. So welcome you guys. Thank you very much for taking time out. Very busy schedule. I know you've had, was it 30 odd games of footy in a couple of days, just smack them together back to back. So I'm sure the last thing you want to be doing, sitting on another Zoom call. Probably had enough of that like everyone else. All the parents here doing homeschooling are really enjoying how that works. So from here, I'll throw to Ben.
Hey, mate. Yep.
Right, and over you.
Yep. You're a vice president, mate. You shouldn't take the stage when I'm on. You need to understand that.
Hang on, I'm still in control. I can mute you.
You're in control of the Zoom, so I better be kind. Thanks for introducing, mate, and thanks to Bob and Richo for joining us tonight. Everyone give an online welcome and clap. You can see it, you can't hear it, but they didn't really have much of a choice. Not everyone would know, but I am good friends with both of these lads, so it was pretty easy to convince them to come along, and they were very happy to do so. But first things first, we've got a lot of questions for you boys, but I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of an introduction because, Richo, you retired a very long time ago, and there's probably a few kids on here that, unless they watch Channel 7, mightn't have the greatest memories of you, Rich. But I know a lot of the older kids and the parents will. And if I just quickly run through, obviously you played at the Tigers. I had to write this down because I didn't know it. 282 games, 3-time All-Australian, 1 Jack Dyle medal, although you did say that Brodders stole one from you in 96.
That's correct.
Should have been 2. Richmond Team of the Century, AFL Hall of Fame, but the biggest one of all, mate, is the Tassie Hall of Fame, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just stuff on paper, isn't it? But I guess I grew up in Tasmania. I grew up with you, Ben, obviously, in a small town called Devonport. So, yeah, anything Tassie related, I'm pretty proud of, yeah.
So you didn't even let me finish there. I was getting to the best part, mate. How many goals did you kick?
In my career?
Yes.
800 exactly.
800 goals, which I think is it's a pretty good number. I don't know where it is in the order of most goals kicked by any players. I'm sure you might know that one.
200 short, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. 1,000 would have been better. I think Buddy Franklin went past me last year or the year before, so I think I'm 12th on the list of goal kickers.
So, mate, I'm going to start with you, Rick, and Bob, I'll get to you. Your intro's a little shorter than that, mate. You didn't kick 800. But I want to, Matty, if you could just throw to the first screen. Matt's going to share the screen. I'm just going to run through a little bit of a journey with you, Richo, and then we're going to go to everyone's questions. Talk me through this, Richo. You mentioned Devonport and Tassie, but what does this photo look like to you?
Good times, good memories. That's the Devonport Warriors junior basketball club, which we both played in together. At one stage there, I think I probably enjoyed playing basketball more than football for a couple of years. Myself and Ben went to school together. We played basketball together. We played footy together. We came to Melbourne at the same time together. So, yeah, when I look at a photo like that, it puts a smile on your face. I did love basketball. I still love watching basketball, and that's our coach, Warren Morris, there. And the little fella in the front, in the middle is Duncan Saul, and the other fellow on the right is a guy called Troy McGlone. So, yeah, good memories. And I guess all of my memories of my childhood, most of them revolve around sport, basketball, footy, cricket. So, yeah, good times.
We weren't obviously the best at school, mate. We were playing sport most of the time.
Yeah, we weren't the most diligent students, but I think being involved in junior sport, is a great place to educate yourself on life, and you meet, most of my best friends in life have come through sport. So, yeah, lots of good times there.
Fantastic. Next one, Matty, keep moving. Right, so this is obviously from Devonport to the Tigers. Now, tell everyone, how did you end up at Richmond? Because it wasn't the draft.
No, I wasn't. My dad played for Richmond back in the 1960s. For any old-timers that can remember, he played for Richmond from 1959 to 1969. He's a premiership player at Richmond in 1967 when they beat Geelong in a grand final. And then he went and played at South Melbourne for a year. Then he moved down to Tasmania to coach, and that's why we were born in Tassie and spent our childhood down there. But I came to Richmond under the father and son rule at the end of 1992. And back then, basically, you just had to sign up. You avoided the draft. So I actually moved over to Melbourne and was already over here training before the draft even took place. So I know you got drafted later on that year, as in the draft, but I was already in Melbourne by that stage. So I always wanted to play for Richmond. I was a Richmond supporter as a kid. Out in the backyard, I always had my Richmond jumper on with number 8 on it. Michael Disco Roach was my hero. He was from Tasmania as well. So, yeah, I always wanted to come to Melbourne and play for the Tigers.
And do you remember the first time they told you were going to play, your first game?
I do. It was round 7 of the 1993 season. We used to train at night back then at 5 o'clock at night, as brothers would know, because most of us worked during the day. Football wasn't full time in the early 90s. So I had a job. I worked for an insurance company, and then I went to training on the Thursday night, and myself and one of my teammates, Duncan Kellaway, we got called into the football manager's office, Doug Vickers. And he told us, John Northey was in his office, and we walked in and they told us we'd be playing against St Kilda on the Saturday afternoon. So, yeah, you never forget that moment. I remember driving home. I lived out in Vermont at the time. I couldn't wait to get home. No mobile phones back then, kids. So I got back to where I was living and gave mum and dad a call in Tassie, and they flew over the next day. So, yeah, we had a win too. We had a win.
And when did you pick up your first weight? Because you didn't look like you did any weights at that point in your career.
No, I hadn't. Well, we didn't do weights in Tassie, did we? I don't even know if we had a gym at the Devonport Footy Club. Certainly didn't do any weights. So, yeah, I started doing weights as soon as I got over here, but it took me a few years to put any muscle on.
Next one, Matty. Keep moving, buddy. Right. Well, we don't have to stop on this one long. But this was talk about a pandemic. There was a pandemic of long hair at Richmond in the mid-90s.
Hey, Bobby, I reckon Marcus Boninpelli's rolling with that at the moment, too.
He has, and Marcus was a Tiger as well. So if you get that previous picture, I had that poster on my wall, kids, as a little kid. So there's a bit of a teaser for later on.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's a couple of questions about Tassie and that are going to come up, Richo, but just quickly, what did it mean to you to pull on the Tassie jumper, particularly in that game that you did?
Yeah, so I actually played State of Origin for Tasmania in 1993. I'd only played 4 games for Richmond. I was surprised to even be selected. To be honest, I probably shouldn't have been, but that is the last time, not this photo here, I was a bit older there, that was for something else, but that was the last time Tasmania played State of Origin football, and I don't think we ever will again. You know, I just don't think it'll happen. So, yeah, proud moment. We played Queensland, a combined Queensland Northern Territory team in Hobart, and Jason Dunstall kicked 10 goals, and we got towed up. But I'll never forget running out in the map of Tassie, as we called it.
North Hobart Oval.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that one was going to be on there, Matty Drew.
Look at that. That is a great photo for a reason. That the 5 players there, Chris Bond, Ben Harrison, myself, and the Gale brothers, we all grew up on the northwest coast of Tasmania in an area of about 70 kilometres along a coastline, population of less than 100,000, and 5 of us from the northwest coast all played together. That was a Friday night game in 1996, and I doubt there's ever been another time where such a small population base has had 5 players in the one team. So that's a really special photo to me, that one.
Probably the Danaher brothers might have been the other one.
Yeah.
Move on, Matty. I think we've looked at that. Now, this is the one that I thought you might want to look at, Richo. You were known for your high flying. What was your favourite ever mark? Do you remember?
It was against Collingwood, actually, over Heath Shaw, a young Heath Shaw. And I was pretty old at the time. I was in my 30s, and I just got the perfect sit, and he stood up at the right time and really boosted me up into the air. And it was against Collingwood on a Friday night at the MCG, so there were probably about 80,000 people there. So, that one sticks in my mind, probably has.
Beautiful, mate. And final question. I think a lot of us who are Richmond fans, or even who are watching that day, saw your reaction on the boundary line, but it must have been an incredible feeling and an amazing couple of hours after that game.
Yeah, it was. I got told before the prelim final that Richmond had nominated me as the past player, or past luminary from the club, who was going to present the cup if Richmond were to win the grand final. And Brendan Gale told me, who's the CEO of Richmond. And I walked out of his office and I thought, gee, we haven't even beaten GWS in the prelim yet. So I couldn't get too excited until after that game. And once they beat GWS, it was a pretty exciting week to be involved. And Mark Bickley was the representative for the Adelaide Crows. Fortunately, Richmond won the game, and I'll never, ever, ever forget that moment. I mean, Bob knows what it's like to be up there on grand final day on that podium, and just to have some involvement in the day and to hand the cup over after a big drought, after a 37-year drought, to hear the Richmond fans at the Punt Road end. The hairs are coming up now just thinking about it. Yeah, it was
because a lot of people here would see you as a footy player, but you're just a fan.
I'm
your whole life.
I'm just a Richmond fan, like those people sitting at the Punt Road end. And I knew how they felt because I was feeling it with them. So, yeah, the footy nuffy in me came out that day, and it was special.
Thanks, mate. Well, appreciate. I think that's the end of the photos, but we'll get back to you soon, Richo. But now it's over to old Bobby Murphy. Mate, 312 games, which is an amazing effort. How many years is that from drafted to finished?
18 years and about 15 tackles. So
Yeah, we can talk later about not how unimportant tackling is for all the kids. It's a joke, kids, by the way. He's not serious. 183 goals, which I guess most people see as a half-back flanker, but I reckon for about 6 of those years you were on the half-forward line a fair bit, weren't you?
Yeah, I was sort of used to swing between half forward and half back. So, yeah, just a proud flanker. Yeah, I think I'll take Harrow.
It's a good spot, the flank, as you know. It's a really good. You don't want to be in the pockets.
No. Well, yeah, I mean, just depends on what day it is. Every game of footy sort of serves up something new every time. So no, that's where I played my best footy, half back and half forward.
So two-time All-Australian, captain of the All-Australian team, and then captain of the Doggies for 3 years, and then you also played for Victoria once or twice, was it? Or
once, I think. Yeah, once against Richo actually in the All-Star game. Yeah.
Oh, for the All-Stars. So did Victoria win?
I think Victoria took the chocolates that night. Yeah.
The great Brendan Favola turned it on that night, Bob, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And I do remember, it's funny, the game itself was all sort of offense, but the biggest roar of the night was when Matthew and Adam Goods sort of both stood each other on the wing, and not the crowd sort of, all the anticipation of these two incredible players and athletes playing on each other and what might happen. So that was lots of good memories from that night.
Rightio, Matty, share the slides. You'll love the first one here, mate.
Yeah.
So the big V was obviously something you wanted to play, someone that you wanted to play for a long time, mate. I don't know how old you would have been here, but
yeah. So this is when this was the little V, I suppose you'd call it. So I would have been 12. So it was the Victorian primary school team, and there was a couple of other players in that team: Dylan Smith and Damien Cupido, Mark Bullen, that went on to play league footy. Jason Cloak. And we played against the other states up in Darwin. That would have been 1994. Yeah, it was the first time I'd been on a plane. Had a great time, great memories.
And mate, where did you grow up? This is obviously in Victoria as a clue. The jumper you're wearing.
Yeah, so I grew up in Warragul, which is in Gippsland, which is about an hour and 10 minutes away southeast. And a different state to Tassie, but Warragul's a pretty cold and wet place, and a sports mad town, Warragul. So yeah, a footy jumper here. But if it wasn't footy, it was tennis, definitely basketball on a Friday night, cricket in the summer. So yeah, a bit of a sports mad kid, bit of a cliche.
Yep. First junior footy club, mate. Do you remember?
Yeah, the Warragul Colts, mate. The Warragul Colts, who I think still to this day the greatest ever football jumper ever produced. Such great memories of that, 8:45 in the morning on a Saturday morning. And I used to wear the number 7 long sleeve jumper with a collar, as all footy jumpers should. I don't know what's happened to collars in footy jumpers, but we need to bring it back. Yep. I just had a charmed time. I loved everything about junior footy, and I miss it to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Next one, Matty. So when I met you, you were in your second year, I think. But tell everyone what it's like to turn up to an AFL club at 17 years old. Would you have been?
I was 17.
Intimidating?
What's that? Sorry?
Intimidating to turn up to an AFL club. It was still in high school.
It was kind of a mix, Ben, of like being intimidated, but also stepping into a bit of a cartoon world. It was. I was from a football town, a football family. So to walk into the football club and there's Chris Grant and Tony Liberatore and Nathan Brown. And so it was 2 years before that I was collecting footy cards. And then a few months into your career, and then you're on a footy card. And it was just all a very sort of surreal experience. And the best way I can kind of describe it is that I got to play my first game against Carlton at Optus Oval. And for me, it was like stepping into the television screen, because that's how I watched footy for my whole life, was watching it on the telly. And then all of a sudden I was out there. It was like I'd stepped through the television screen, and all around me was Anthony Koutafidis and Craig Bradley and Aaron Hamill's trying to fight Tony Liberatore. And I remember just being out there, just feeling like it was in this sort of bizarre sort of world. And it was,
the ball came towards you. You're like, oh,
it was almost like forgetting how to do it all. But it turned out the first game was just one of those magical days where the Bulldogs beat the Blues by 2 points in front of a packed house at Optus Oval. And there were plenty of hard days in footy after that, but that day was just absolute perfection in my memory.
So obviously, there's a bit of a difference between Bob Murphy circa, what was that photo there?
2000, yeah.
Yep. And now this is Bob Murphy circa 2014 or 15,
maybe even a bit later, yeah.
Bob, how much weight did you put on from 17 to that age there?
Probably about 16 or 17 kilos, maybe. Yeah. I was pretty raw, as they say. I do remember when I got to the Bulldogs, they used to make us do chin-ups, and I used to turn the other way because I didn't have hair under my arms, and I was a bit self-conscious because all the other I mean, they're all, fully grown men, and I was a bit embarrassed. Shouldn't be embarrassed about their kids, but I was at the time.
Yeah. So it was about, I reckon, 2015 when you were named captain. Is that right?
Yeah, start of 2015. Yeah.
And we're probably, given that we're at Fitzroy Junior Footy Club, the Western Bulldogs supporter base is not generally coming out of Fitzroy. So a little bit of a picture. The club wasn't in the best shape when you took over. It's fair to say.
Yeah, no, it was worse than that, Ben. It was probably as low as a footy club can get, just about. Our captain left. Our coach had been sacked. Our CEO, good mate of ours, he'd been sacked. So we were a bit of a laughing stock of the competition at that time, yeah.
So then Bevo comes in, and I know it's hard to answer, but something obviously happened. And what was it that he was able to do and you were able to do just to turn that around, even in the short term?
It's always a combination of things, but Luke Beveridge is a pretty special person, I think, in my footy career. But he's a great storyteller, and that was something that appealed to me. And he has belief in himself. And so when a coach has self-belief, but then he told us players that he believed in us. So we had, we'd had 3 or 4 losing seasons. And so we were a bruised footy team and a bruised footy club. And when Luke came in and believed in us and told us that we could be great, it kind of lifted our horizons and lifted our expectations, and we started to win games, and it built a momentum, and then it started to become a really powerful momentum. And I don't know exactly why it all happened, but when we were living it, it was a bit like bouncing on a wave. It was just this unstoppable sort of wave that was headed in the right direction, where for years it had been pretty grim.
And often it's footy clubs coaches can be pretty negative and point out what you don't do well, but actually pointing out what you were doing well, I think is something that we always obviously carry through with our junior footy coaches. It's really important.
Yeah, that's right, as it should be at junior level. But I think sometimes at the professional level, we sometimes take that for granted, and that was something that Luke and the other coaches encouraged of guys to explore their strengths and what else they could be good at, and playing in different positions and kicking on the opposite foot. All of these things that just hadn't really happened before, and lots of good things happen as a result.
Fantastic. Next one, Matty. So this is a massive feather in your cap, captain of the All-Australian team. So you become captain in 2015, and then a year later, was it, you're named captain of the All-Australian team? Is that right?
Yeah, that same year, in the first year, yeah.
Yeah. Now, that must have felt pretty satisfying. I know it's an individual award, but a fairly big honour to be captain of the All-Australian team, I would have thought. Yeah,
and Matt, articulates this stuff better than just about anyone, but the pure enjoyment you get out of the game is from the team aspect. And so any award that I got as a captain was because of what we were as a team. And I suppose the thing that I got out of it the most was that, when the club was in crisis, we'd lost our dignity. No one really felt good about putting on a Western Bulldogs jumper. And so in a really short space of time, we put a lot of hard work into to be the best team and look after one another. And in a pretty short period, we all felt really proud about putting the Bulldogs jumper on. So that's what makes me feel good.
Next one, Matty. So this is obviously a wonderful moment that we all remember, and I don't want you to go too far into it, but 1954, the last grand final,
Yeah.
The great Charlie Sutton, who was a great man around the club, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Just that feeling of that gap between success and all those players that have come before, and it must have been an unbelievable moment to be part of, mate.
Yeah, it was, because you know what it's like when you arrive at a football club, you do take on the history of that football club, and Matthew and Brothers and you, Ben, you know the history of a few clubs, but you do take on the history. And part of playing at the Bulldogs was we'd won a premiership in 1954, and then had years and years of pain, and really all we had our hat to hang on was individual awards or survival, because it had been a pretty tough stretch. So when those 22 boys took the field and beat Sydney in that grand final, it sort of healed a lot of pain. 62-year drought, there's a lot of pain there. So winning grand finals is always dramatic, but that day, kind of took it to a whole new level, I think.
Pretty dramatic that day. It was a really close game too, and it wasn't over till, I don't know, 4 minutes left or 2. I don't know. It was a
pretty tight one, and a lot of people got really emotional. I was kind of a bit of an emotional rock through that whole period. And sort of kept a lot of it to myself.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't think anyone could blame you, mate, for being slightly emotional. I nearly throttled Matthew. Richo sent me a text at half time saying the dogs are home, and I'm a doggies man, and I could have throttled him. I thought, we're going to lose. Remember that, Rich?
I do, but as Bob talked about the momentum before, and I reckon I commentated all of their games through that final series, and when you're not actually involved emotionally and you sort of sit back and can look at it with a clearer mind, I just knew the Dogs were going to win that day. It just was clear to me. But if you're involved in it, it's hard to see it that way. But the momentum was huge. Yeah.
Well, boys, thank you so much for sharing all that journey with everybody. Now, I want to pass it. We've got some great questions here, so I want to get everyone else involved. And sorry to hog the boys for that amount of time. But I want to start. Bridget, Smith, Gary, and young Jack, where are you? Matt, can you... I think it's Bridget Smith, her email there. Put your hand up, maybe hit the... Oh, hey, guys, how are you?
That's good. Thanks,
good.
Ben.
G'day, Jack.
I think we've just mainly got one question for every former footy player. What was your favourite game that you played in?
Is that for both of us? Yeah.
For both of you. Yep.
I played it for 17 years, but I only played in one final series, which is disappointing, but that's just what football is. But my favourite game is the final on the MCG, a semi-final against Carlton in 2001. Carlton are a bit of an arch rival of Richmond, obviously. And to beat them on the MCG and find ourselves in a prelim final the next week, that always sticks in my mind. I think big finals, and I only played in one series, so that's definitely the one for me.
Yeah, it's a good answer. The one that springs to mind for me is so a year and a half before the Bulldogs beat the Swans in the grand final, we beat the Swans at the SCG in round 5, and it was in the wet, and it was really close. And that was the win where that group, I think, realised how good they could be. So that was if I was going to watch another game of footy that I was involved in, that'd be the one I'd pick.
Great question, Jack. Thanks, mate.
Good question.
Now, young Ash, Stuart and Ash, where are you? Stuart Denmead.
Hey.
Hey, mate. G'day, Ash. How you going?
Good, thanks. So Ash has got a question for Bob about his book. I'll throw over to him.
Excellent. VIP here.
Well, did your first cat really get half buried in the backyard by her dad?
Yeah, it did, yeah. So I'll just tell the quick version. But yeah, my the cat that I grew up with, Shark Azula, it had been hit by a car, and it was my dad's job to bury the cat, and he did it at night. But I'm not sure if he was just a bit tired or he didn't put the lights on, but he only buried the front half of the cap. And so by the morning, the back half was sticking out of the air. And it was a bit of a calamity, guys. I don't want to go into the gory details, but whew, that was a tough day. But that was a tough morning before school, let me tell you.
Thanks, Ash. Great question. Sean, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I did. So Ben and Matthew and any other Tasmanians on the call, I'm from the big metropolis of Launceston, which is like 5 times the size of Devonport. So it's pretty much a mega city. Yep. I'm really keen to hear what you guys think of, Tasmania getting an AFL team up and going, and, when you think it's going to happen, and have you had any coaching offers as yet?
Go, Richard, because I certainly haven't had any coaching offers.
No, I haven't. The whole idea that Tasmania should have an AFL team is 100% correct. They should, I think, for a truly national competition. And when you look at it, Tasmania, look at that team of the century there. Tassie's produced some of the greatest players the game's ever seen. Ian Stewart, 3 Brownlow medals, Darryl Baldock in the middle there. Royce Hart and Peter Hudson. I mean, they don't get much better than that. So for a truly national competition, we should have a team. Unfortunately, I think with what's happened now with the COVID-19, it might have delayed that, I'd say. I can't see them offering another franchise out in the near future, but it'll happen one day. Hopefully it happens while, we're still alive, because I'd love to see Tasmania have a team.
The same old story, isn't it? If North and South can agree, maybe we might be on track. Stuart, you're in the North, so we're friends.
Yeah, it's always Hobart's fault, in my view.
Hence the problem with Tassie, you see, sometimes. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you. Thanks so much for being involved. Jarvis Tyrrell from the Under-9s. Where are you, mate? Hey, buddy.
Yeah, so my question is to Bob Murphy and Matthew Richardson is, what is your most memorable goal and the best moment that you had in footy?
Well, do you want me to go first? Because Matthew's got to go through 800 of them. So I'll go with the first one that comes to mind. So in my first game, that one I told you about against Carlton, I kicked a goal late in the game and it put us in front. Now, a lot of Bulldogs supporters think that I won the game, and I know we should always tell the truth, but I just don't interrupt them, because what actually happened is then someone else kicked a goal and then someone else kicked a goal. So I didn't kick the winner, but don't let the truth get in the way. So that was my favourite. First game, first goal. Yeah,
I think you always remember your first goal, and all your teammates get around you. As they say now, they get around, and I'll always remember my first goal against St Kilda. I got a handball off our captain, Jeff Hogg. I don't reckon I've kicked many goals getting a handball receive and running in, and I'll always remember that one. I guess most of my goals were offset shots, but I remember that first one pretty vividly, like it was yesterday.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think, what was the other question? It was the goal and your favourite moments.
Yeah.
What was that? Tougher, best opponent?
No, favourite moment, best moment.
Oh, and favourite moment. The first time I got to run out first as captain, that was a pretty special moment. I would pick that one. Yep.
Yeah, I remember one moment that just came to mind just then was we had a teammate by the name of Duncan Kellaway, and Brothers will remember him well. And he was the ultimate team man. He just did anything for the team. He was courageous. He was brave. He didn't want any accolades, but he was a defender, and he wasn't a very good kick. He was a shocking kick, actually, Doug, wasn't he? Let's be honest. And he kicked a goal against Port Adelaide one day, and he was a long way into his career. And, the whole team got around him because it was his first goal, and he probably played 150 games at this stage. So, yeah, that was something that I always remember.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys, for getting involved. Thanks, Jarvis. Now, young Eamon and Luke, I can see you there. You're on the stage, mate.
Hello, Eamon.
My question for Richo is, what was it like being on the Picket Palace video?
It was awesome. It was awesome. I remember I got a phone call from Channel 7 and they said, there's a band called Picket Palace, and all you guys would probably have heard the Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody song. And they said, they've written a song about you called Richo, and they want you to be in their film clips. So like a lot of sportsmen, you know, in another life, I'd love to have been a musician. I love music. So yeah, it was a bit of a thrill. I got up and on the front bar before the grand final and played the tambourine. It's the only instrument I can play. So that was a bit of fun as well.
Were you relieved that it was a good song, Matt? Because it is a fun song.
Yeah, I was. And it holds a good tune, doesn't it? A bit punky.
It's no problem there. It's a beauty.
There was another band back in the 90s that were a real heavy metal type band that...
Trial by Video.
No, not Trial by Video, but yeah, they wrote a song as well. That one wasn't quite as good.
Okay.
And mate, did you have one for Bob?
Yeah. My question for Bob is, did you get to keep the medal Bevo gave you?
No. So the story there. So Bevo made me give it back, and then he gave it to the museum. So it's the Jock McHale medal. So we probably should apologise to the McHales, because it's almost like no one wants the medal, because it never felt like my medal. So I gave it to Luke, and then Luke gave it to the museum. I don't know who the museum will give it to next, but it might be one of you guys. Does anyone want it? Yeah. No one seems to want it.
No. I'm sure there's a few coaches that would want it, mate.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you. Thanks, Luke. Now, Cam, I can see you there, mate. I've read your question. Cam Conduit, I can see you, mate. You go, buddy. You go.
All right. So there's been a few players, guys, that have represented both your clubs with distinction. But I just want to focus on the big fish here. So there's Leon Cameron, Patrick Bowden, and Ben Harrison. And of those guys, if you could only pick one, who would you pick in your side? And if you could only pick one to go on a footy trip with you, likewise, who would it be?
Wow. Well, I'm sorry to have to say this to Ben, because he's been my best mate since we were 5 years of age. I probably would pick Leon Cameron, because I'm a forward, and that guy was one of the best kicks of the football I ever played with. He could kick left and right foot. You couldn't tell which one was better. You know, I still don't know if he was a left or right footer. So as a player, a teammate, he was a great teammate as well. He was a really good leader, but definitely on the footy trip, I have to take Ben Harrison. He went to Las Vegas on 7 football trips, Ben Harrison. And he didn't disappoint on any of them.
I think we can move on to Bob now on that question, mate. I think we know the answer.
Well, I'm going to answer it slightly differently. Put a red line through Pat Bowden for the football and the footy trip. I got to go on footy trips with Ben, and I get to see Ben all the time. So I'd like to go on a football trip with Leon Cameron, and I actually think Ben was one of the most courageous players I ever played with, and he could play in lots of positions. So I'll pick to play with Ben.
Good. Apologies for making around, by the way, as well. We couldn't quite squeeze him in the big fish piece there. But Luca's got a question as well, just quickly, if that's right.
For both of you, who are your favourite players in the current teams for Richmond and Bulldogs?
Ooh.
Oh, I'll tell you who obviously I love Dustin Martin, because he's, you know, in those 2 grand finals, he was the Norm Smith medalist, and he's just an unbelievable player. But I've got a new cult figure now, a little fella that's playing on the half-back flank. He doesn't fumble, he doesn't make mistakes, and if any of you barrack for Richmond, just watch little Liam Baker play. He's an absolute beauty. I've got a real affinity for him at the moment.
Yeah, that's nice, Matty. A bit like you. So Marcus Bontempelli is kind of, that's the law. If you follow the Bulldogs, you kind of got to love Marcus. But if there was another one, I'd probably pick Caleb Daniel, and he's a good. He's not just a good player, but he's a good lesson in life. Of doesn't matter what size you are, if you're good enough, you'll get a chance. So he'd be one that I would. If you guys are ever watching the Bulldogs, just watch how clean he is with his hands and how he makes his teammates better.
I love footballers that don't fumble, and
yeah.
Daniel doesn't fumble, and neither does Liam Baker. Liam Baker's not as good as Daniel yet, but if you don't fumble the ball, you're going to be, it takes you a long way.
Great question. Thanks, buddy. Now, Leon Barrett, an under 8. Now, these poor under 8s didn't, first year at the club and didn't get a chance to have a kick. But you've got a chance now, mate, to ask a question. Where are you, buddy? Hey, mate.
This is for Bob and Richo. How do you learn to kick on your non-preferred foot?
That's a very good question, and it's a very important question. You know, one of the most important things about kicking on your opposite foot, don't worry about being embarrassed. Don't worry about making mistakes. There's a bit of a theory on, you know, when you see someone riding a skateboard, you know, see those guys doing the jumps. Do you know how many times they had to fall off before they got good? Heaps.
Yeah.
So when you practice your opposite foot, don't get embarrassed about mistakes, and don't make fun of any other kids who are trying on their opposite foot either. Okay, so just do as many as you possibly can, and you'll get there. And yeah, so that's a really important skill to become a best footballer you can be. Good question, Leon.
Yeah,
I'm not sure you ever kicked on your opposite foot.
I wasn't a very good kick on my opposite foot, Leon. So I probably should have practiced more when I was younger. Bob was a good kick on either side, but yeah, I can't answer it any better than Bob. Practice makes perfect. So the more you get out in your backyard, and you know, even if you haven't got someone else to have a kick with, Leon, you can always kick it up against the brick wall or the fence, and you don't have to be kicking it a long way. It's just practicing your technique. So yeah, practice makes perfect. We've got plenty of time to do that at the moment too, haven't we? Get out in the backyard and get some fresh air.
We have, mate. Great stuff. Thank you, Leon. Great question. We've got a few more to go, and I think everyone's enjoying it. So thanks, boys. They're doing a great job. Gus and young Hamish have got a couple of questions. You ready, Hamish?
Yeah.
Fire away.
Lots of them have been answered, but a couple still. There's lots of mullets in the AFL now. Who's your favourite mullet?
Well, my favourite mullet, he was before his time. A big player that played for Richmond called Ivan Maric. He's shaved it off now, but he had a mullet before they were back in trend, Big Ivan. But, look, I think you got to go with the doggy, Bailey Smith. That is one of the best mullets I have ever seen. And you haven't lived until you've had a mullet either, by the way. At some point in your life, you've got to have a mullet. But Bailey Smith's hard to beat, Bob, isn't he?
Yeah, his is quite majestic. Yeah, he takes a lot of care of it. I've got a bit of time for Lyndon Duns because he's really committed to it, and he's donating some money to charity. But I'm a little bit worried with how many players are just shaving off their sideburns. I want to see some players bring the big lamb chops back. I don't know why everyone's so down on the sideburns these days. The balance.
Is that not Fitzroy Oval in the backdrop there?
I reckon it's Brunswick Street.
Brunswick Street, mate, that's the holy grail, mate.
That is.
That's like your punt road to us.
It is. Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's a more beautiful footy ground than Brunswick Street.
Beautiful.
And also, what's your favourite breakfast?
Good question. Good question. When I played footy, I was a big Wheat Bix man. I loved my Wheat Bix. I'd have 5 or 6 the morning of a game. Hot milk, I always put it in the microwave for, 45 seconds just to warm the milk up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I was a bit like Matthew growing up in where I was a Wheat Bix kid, but now that I have moved to Northcote, it's more of an acai bowl with a smashed avocado and some pomegranates and some kale,
Tell me you don't have almond milk blood ace, Bobby.
I
don't, but there is almond milk in the house.
Thanks, Gus, Hamish. Thanks, guys. Do you have another question, Gus? I've just got one more here, and then I think there's a few people in the chat, Matt, I might get you to point out. Jeff Cope, where are you, Jeff?
Hello. I'm here.
G'day. How are you, mate?
It's Hamish.
Good. G'day, Hamish. Welcome, buddy. You want to ask the boys a question?
Yeah, I recently bumped into Brian Taylor at the local footy oval, and he talked about the torpedo and how it sadly isn't being taught as much. How do you guys, what is your opinion of that?
I think there is a place in the game for a torpedo if you can do it consistently. But the reason why the torpedo, I guess, has died out of football is because it is a higher risk kick, and coaches, are very loath to encourage you to kick them. But if you've got a kick outside after the siren and you're 60 metres out, I mean, you're not going to make the distance with a drop punt. So if you have the ability to kick a torpedo, it can set you apart from a lot of other players. And in my time, there was a guy from Essendon who could do them consistently from full back. He could launch the ball into the middle. And that's where I think they could be used on kick-ins. If you can get the ball into the middle of the ground, Dustin Fletcher was unbelievable at it. So the reason it died out, though, is because it's not as reliable as the drop punt. And I guess they don't want you kicking that risky kick.
Were you much of a torpedo man, Matt?
I would be lying if I said I think I've ever hit one correctly in a game. I don't think I ever nailed one in a game.
No, a 312 game. I don't think I ever tried one. And even if I get onto one at training, they go about 36 metres. So not for me.
No, difficult one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hamish. Did you have any more questions, mate?
Well, you answered both of them. The other one was going to be what do you think was your best? So.
Okay, mate. Thank you. Everyone who's asked questions too will be getting a little gift and a prize. We've got all your details, so you'll just have to wait a little bit before you get it, but I promise you we will deliver on that. Matty, there's a couple of questions, 2 or 3 left to go in the chat box. Do you want to ask? Open the floor.
Got a couple here. Harvey and Elliot, if you guys are there and you want to turn your cameras on, you can ask that question. Jump on. You were first in line. So Harvey and Elliot, under 12 and under 10. Not there yet. I can ask it.
Yeah.
There they are.
How did you get to AFL level, and what are some of your tips?
How do you get to AFL level? It's a long journey. I started playing football when I was in the under 10s, so I was eight years of age, my first year. Look, it takes a lot of commitment. You probably do have to sacrifice things, particularly as you get older. And I think the most important thing at your age is you've just got to have fun with your football. You take it seriously, but make sure you're having fun, because it is one of the best times of your life playing in your junior footy team. I guess when you get into your teens, when you get to 15 and 16, you start making representative teams. So you might make your local representative team, and then you branch out into the surrounding regions. And then if you make a state team, I think as an underage player like Bob did, that's when the recruiters start to notice you, when you make a state team. So look, it is a long journey, and not many people make it. But you've got to have goals. So set yourself goals and little achievable goals, I think, as well along the way, and just tick them off.
Yeah, Harvey, the only thing I would add to that is that, so from what I know of the coaching that you guys get, you get taught to be good teammates and how to make the game easier for, the person next to you. Don't think that the more serious football gets, that goes away. Don't think that, once you get to, under 16s or under 18s, then it's all about you being a star and then you'll play in the AFL. You always need to be a good teammate, whatever level of footy you play at. So if you keep a focus on that and enjoying your football, then you'll go as far as you want.
Yeah. Thanks.
Good question.
Questions, Harvey and Elliot. Okay, we've got another one here. Really good question from Marnie. So, Marnie, do you want to chuck your microphone on and you guys can jump in and ask that question, please?
Hi, guys. My daughter Molly and her friends Tayson and Liv were all set to line up again for the youth girls team. But this break that we've now had, along with how women's footy is evolving, I'm just wondering about how you feel the inclusion of girls and women, and how do you feel that is adding something different into football? And also, how can we keep building the momentum behind that at a local club, perhaps?
Well, I think the inclusion of girls at club level has just brought so many more people to the football club. There's all of a sudden footy clubs are thriving again, and it's because so many girls are playing, and it's bringing in parents and friends and family that maybe would never have been involved in footy clubs. So that can only be a good thing. And the momentum is only going to get bigger, isn't it? I mean, the AFLW is going from strength to strength. I know it was cut short this year with COVID, but it's going to be back bigger than ever next year. And the more it's on TV and the more that young girls can see that there's a pathway there, I just see it getting stronger and stronger, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I've got a little bit of involvement with the Bulldogs women's team, and the improvement that I've seen in the girls who are just new to the club has been incredible. So the improvement is going to be really sharp at the AFLW level, but the participation underneath is a revolution. So I think it can only make the game bigger and better and more inclusive. So embrace it, because it's here to stay, and I think it makes all of us better, our clubs better, our leagues better, and everyone involved.
Good stuff. Had another question from Nick. I think part B of his question has been answered about your favourite current day players. But Nick, maybe you want to ask part A of your question about who the guys thought were their most enjoyable players. You can jump on and ask that if you like.
Yeah, so this is for both of you. Who are the players that you enjoy watching from today's game and also back when you were playing?
Yeah, I guess I'm a bit older than Bob, so I go back a little bit further. But, I mean, in the 80s and 90s, I generally was always a forward in my junior career, so I always loved watching the big forwards play. So I loved all of the big full forwards, Gary Ablett Senior, Tony Lockett, was unbelievable. I love, Sticks Kernahan, and then Michael Roach at Richmond. But in the latter day, I don't think I've enjoyed watching anyone more than Buddy Franklin. To sit on the boundary line when I finished playing and to be able to see him up close, some of the stuff that he can do. I was there the night at the MCG when he had that big run along the members' wing and kicked that goal from the boundary line. Cale Hooker was chasing him. That was just incredible. To see a guy of his size be able to move the way he does and have the skills that he does, he's hard to top, Buddy Franklin.
It's pretty hard to top that. When I was a kid, guys, my family, we barracked for the Richmond Tigers and for Peter Dacos. So that of a bit of a thrill for me to sit here with Matthew and Ben and Brodders. But Peter Dacos is like a bit of a god in our household. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to, go past, Buddy and Cyril and Stevie Johnson and those guys. But I also like some of the guys who are more of the role players as well. So I like that there's a guy like Cade Simpson in our game he's built like this pen. He's got a beard and he's got a long sleeve jumper, and he's played about 330 games. And I think we should applaud a player like that.
How did he get up after that Falcon the other night? Did everyone play that? That was incredible.
Middle of winter too.
Yeah, he got straight up.
No.
How are we going, Matty? Got any more questions, buddy?
Yeah, look, there was a couple. Young fella called Denzel was looking for Richo's phone number, but I don't think we should give that out. And another guy called Darren Driscoll was asking for Bob. So, yeah, he's not going to get that either. Here's one. I've got one for you. Bob, have a look at this one.
Yeah.
That was last year. That was obviously one of the highlights of your career, running out of Vic Park in the Mighty Roy's jumper.
Mm.
How did Ben go that day? Do you remember?
Look, it's a team game, and we all have to play our role.
He had a big comeback. He had a training session that lasted about 2 weeks. He trained for.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Ben was our focal point that day, and we lost a soldier that day, guys. 5 minutes in, tore his groin. Played on courageously. I told you he was courageous, but he ran around like he had a stone in his boot for the rest of the day. It was pretty hard to watch.
Very embarrassing.
Very embarrassing.
Thanks, Matt, can I ask a question?
You can, Darren. Jump in, mate.
This is one for Matthew, and I've annoyed Ben over the years with this but I used to drink at a pub called the Rose Hotel in Fitzroy, not far from where we are.
Yes.
And I just happened to go in one day, and Ben was there with Richo, and the pub owner was Dave. And your coach at the time was Release the Geesh. Geesh. Yeah. And Matthew, can I just ask you, it's A or B question. Did one you say, A, Geesh is a really sophisticated football mind who knows what he's doing and has a sophisticated game plan, or B, the bloke's got no idea what he's doing?
The Geesh? No, when he first took over...
In between?
I'm sorry, Ben, for asking that question.
I'll tell you a quick story. I remember we won 4 out of the last 5 games when Jeff got the caretaking coaching role. And I remember the last game of the year, we beat Carlton, and the cheer squad were selling badges out the front of the ground. Unleash the Geesh. Okay?
Yes. I thought it was Release the Geesh, but it was actually Release Bodwick.
And then 18 months later, they were selling badges that was Release the Geesh. So they turned on him pretty quickly, the Richmond fans.
Would being a head coach be the hardest job in Australia, or right up there with?
Well, back then in particular, I mean, they didn't have much support, really. I reckon when I first started, John Northey had a reserves coach, Peter Schwab, and he had one other assistant coach who was part-time. So they basically had to do everything. You know, it all fell onto them. So they've got more support now. I mean, they've got about 8 or 9 assistant coaches now. But in that time in the 90s, you know, when it turned bad, they had no support. They were out on their own. Yeah. Not a good time, I don't reckon.
Thanks, Darren. The Rose Hotel was a great local. Now, young Dean there, you've sent a message.
Placard.
You've got a question, mate?
He's gone. He's...
Right. He put up a sign, I've got a question, and now he doesn't want to talk to us. Dean, I can see you, buddy. You got a question? That's okay if you don't.
Hi.
Hey,
mate.
Buddy.
What's your question, buddy?
I'm talking. I have a question for Richard. What do you miss about playing footy?
That is a great question. Good question, Dean. I'm glad that you asked that question. As I said to you before, playing in sporting teams is the best time of your life. And the thing I miss the most is when you're at a footy club, you got 40 great mates around you every day. And most of the time you work hard and you have fun, but you have so many laughs and you make so many friends through sport. And I remember when I retired, about a week later, I woke up one day and I literally did think, geez, where's all my mates gone? You know, I've gone from hanging around with 40 people every day to sort of being in a bit of limbo. So, yeah, I miss the camaraderie and bonds that you make with your teammates.
Great answer, and I think we're lucky, aren't we, to have junior footy clubs like this, because that journey can start when you're 8, and you can continue that for years and years. So
I guarantee you, in 20 or 30 years' time, some of you guys will still be close friends, and it would have all started at your junior footy club.
I just had a message from who was that? Was it Daniel? Someone just sent a message to me. Yeah, Daniel, you have a question?
Yeah, this is for both of you. What was your biggest kick?
Matthew had a pretty good one in the All-Star, big one in the All-Star game last year. It didn't go in the right direction, but
nearly missed my foot, I think, Bob, didn't it? What do you mean, as far as distance or just the
distance?
Look,
the square?
I reckon from the square, a few windy days at the MCG, maybe 60 metres when it clears the line. Not much more than that, though.
No, I was a bit less than that. I only got little legs, so I was only about 50 metres for me.
Fantastic. Now, I think thanks for everyone's questions tonight. Before we wrap up, if anyone's got one last thing they'd like to ask, please do before the boys go. We don't often get a chance to talk to couple of AFL legends. So it's just gone 8 o'clock. So if you want to put your hand out, please do.
Stuart's got one about.
Yeah, at risk of going over the 8 o'clock Melbourne curfew, I just wanted to get your guys' views on how you think the players are coping with being in the hubs, because it's like everyone else having to deal with a new way of sort of working and living. So just wondered if you'd heard anything or got a sense of how they're going.
I think the feedback I'm getting now is the Melbourne guys, they're probably feeling pretty grateful that they're together and they're playing football. And, you know, they've got family and friends down here in Melbourne, and we all know what's happening. We're under some tight restrictions at the moment. So I think they're grateful. They're happy to be playing. And I think initially the uneasiness of it has gone away, and I think it's going well now, yeah.
Yeah, from what I heard at the Bulldogs, I think the last of the players whose partners were back in Melbourne have flown in and met them all. So I think, all things considered, I think they're doing okay, and there's only 6 games to go, so yeah, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, boys, just before you leave, Hamish, what's it like being a commentator? Richard, that's probably for you, mate. That one.
Hey, SEN.
Sorry.
Comments,
a broadcast TV commentator.
Nothing to sneeze at, mate.
It's better when you're at the ground. Let me tell you that. When you're at the MCG, sitting on the boundary or up in the commentary box, at the moment, we're commentating the games off TV screens in studios. So it's not quite the same. The atmosphere is not there. I always say when people ask me, if you had told me when I finished playing football that I'd still be working in the industry, 12, 13 years later, and making a living out of watching football, I would have said, no, that's not going to happen. So I'm just lucky to have the jobs that I've got, and it's great fun. How can it not be fun watching games of footy?
Yeah, good answer.
And just quickly, guys, because we're obviously unable to play this year, and we've got a fairly long summer ahead before we can, touch wood, start training again next year. What are 2 or 3 things that kids should be doing with the footies, and just keeping up their skills over this period where they can't, be with their teammates and possibly for a little bit longer?
I've got 2 just off the top of my head. One of them is to, when it's sunny and you can get outside and have a kick of the footy, do that. But when you're inside, you've got to learn how to turn a pair of footy socks into a football. Now, I'll get some information to Ben to show you how to do this. Now, you might break a few vases. You might upset mum and dad at home, but this can be done. But kicking a pair of socks around the house to up the skills is important. But when you're outside, that football is such a funny shaped and unpredictable thing. You can't do enough of throw it up in the air, wait for it to bounce, and then try and read which way it bounces, okay? So they're just a couple of little things to keep the brain and the skills sharp. And I'm sure that's 2, and I'm sure Matthew's got a 3rd one just to round it all out.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I remember hearing Stephen Kernahan talk years ago when I was back in Tassie, and I might have even been in a newspaper article or something, but he just said he never had the footy out of his hands. So even you guys sitting there now, you can just have the footy in your hands, just twirling it around. The more it's in your hands, the more, comfortable it'll be when you get into game days. So, even if you're just lying in bed and you're tossing it up in there, look at Bobby now, just doing that, just touching the footy. You can't touch it enough.
Give it a sniff as well. Nothing
I used to love throwing it against when I didn't have anyone to kick with, and marking was my thing. That's what I did the best, I guess, in my career. I'd just throw it up against the brick wall at the side of the house and just rebound back off the wall, marking it at all different angles. I found that to be really good for my marking and reflexes. And that's something you can do on your own. You don't need anyone around to do that.
Thanks, gents. A big clap for the guys for coming along tonight.
Thank you.
It was good fun, and thanks for sharing your journeys all the way from Devonport and Warragul, all the way through to the end of your career and now. And we'd love to see you guys down at the Fitzroy Junior Footy Club next year when we're actually out there playing and training, and I'm sure I will get you down there. But again, can't thank you enough for joining, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. and go Roy's.
Good on you. Go Roy's.
Thanks, guys.
Up the Roy's.
See you, brothers.
See you,
See you
Richard.
later, mate.
See you, Bob.
See you, brothers.
See you, Bobby.
Thanks,
See you.
Harry.
Thanks, guys. Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ben. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Was it good?
Leo, you should be in bed.